Do you struggle to find your voice in a noisy world? Do you feel your voice lacks confidence and energy to accurately communicate your thoughts, ideas, and passions? Do you wish there was an easy way to give your voice what it needs to captivate your audience every time? My name is Clay Collins, and like you, I struggled with these issues for years. But I found a blueprint that can help you change the way you think about your voice and therefore the way your voice comes across to others. Welcome to the My Voice Mentor podcast. I think I finally figured out what my primary goal as a voice coach is. And it is simply to normalize great singing or great speaking. In other words, that it's normal to encounter people with amazing vocal gifts and talents, whether it be speaking or singing. I think we've really gone wrong in our humanity by celebritizing and exalting certain gifts above other gifts. And I think that that is absolutely true, and probably more so true with singers than anyone. To some degree, musicians as well. But usually singers are, in the artist world, the headliner, the one that gets their name on the marquee, the one that everybody comes to see. Even the musicians in the band are secondary to that one person sitting in that center seat that everybody is. If you haven't discovered Ben Rector yet, first of all, I would say, where have you been? But second of all, he is one of what I would consider to be a model artist. He exemplifies what a artist should be, how they should be, the way they are. Not only his music, which is amazing. He's actually one of the true last, what I would call, and what used to be the term, album-oriented artists. And if you've been born in the last 20 years, you don't know what that means. But there was a time way back in the day where music and albums that were released were intended to be listened to as a complete work. In other words, they did have singles back in the days of the 30s, 40s, 50s. But in the 60s, 70s, 80s, we had what were called concept albums. And you would buy the entire record. And I mean a record, a round disc that you would, actually people know what that is today because they've kind of made a comeback. But you would basically, as the term would imply, you drop the needle and you're not stopping it. I mean, it was meant to be listened to as a whole. And really, Ben Rector is one of those kind of artists. And I want to talk about him today a little bit because there's so many things that we can learn from the way he has crafted his career. But first, do you want to improve your voice? Do you want to become a better public speaker, a better singer, a more engaging entertainer, performer? Whatever the case may be, I want to give you my free 5-day vocal bootcamp. All you got to do is go to myvoicementor.com/bootcamp, and you can get started literally before the end of this podcast. And I want you to do that. There's no reason why you shouldn't. I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to find out what is going on with you and your voice right now so that I can help you. So don't delay. Check the link in the description, or just, again, go to myvoicementor.com/bootcamp. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And if you want to be notified of future videos, hit the bell notification as well. But let's get right into today's topic because I think it's a good one. Ben Rector, his album that everybody needs to go and listen to right now. You can listen to it on YouTube, Spotify, but I recommend that you buy it and listen to it from beginning to end. And you'll know what I'm talking about. The songs on the album go together to paint a complete picture. I think we've really lost a certain art form by just releasing singles and singles and singles, and none of them have anything to do with one another. It was really delightful and entertaining and enjoyable to just listen to a Ben Rector album, and every single song had its place and every single song I loved. There was not a single dud or flip side or B-side song on the entire album. The name of the album is Joy of Music, and it really has a little bit of something for everybody. Love it. Maybe one day I'll get to the point where Ben Rector and I can have a conversation about it. I look forward to that. But in the meantime, I really want to lift him up today. So please go and support him. He is what I would consider probably the best example of a today artist that if I were to guide somebody that was interested in that path, I would look to him. So we're going to look at him today. A lot of what we talk about on the My Voice Mentor podcast in addition to helping you improve your voice and vocal tips and training and all that kind of stuff, is also helping align your mindset. Because I think while the voice is one of the most powerful instruments that you have, that can be a double-edged sword, and it can be probably your greatest demise as well. Now, for me, I am a believer in the God of the Bible. I'm a Christian. I'm certainly of the Judeo-Christian orientation when it comes to what I believe to be true. And there's this interesting story, to some degree allegorical. There's been a lot of interesting discussion and debate over what happened in heaven prior to the creation of the earth. It's this interesting story of this battle that took place in heaven, where it probably really wasn't much of a battle, but basically in a nutshell, one guy rose up and decided he wanted to be above the Most High. He wanted to become God himself. And in that moment, he fell from heaven like a bolt of lightning and was forever banished from heaven. And not only that, he took a third of the angels with him. So we have all these fallen beings that, yes, on the one hand, we can look at that, oh, that's fabulistic. That's just that's just a Sunday school story. That can't possibly be real. And yet, we see models in society that actually paint a pretty accurate picture of what the result of that interaction, however many years ago, we almost can actually see the results and the seeds of that today. And we certainly see that in entertainment. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit. But another story that we find in the book of Genesis, which is very interesting, is this encounter between two brothers. And whether you're a Christian or not, you're probably familiar with the story. Abel was the good guy. He was the righteous son. He wasn't the firstborn, by the way. He was the secondborn son of Adam and Eve. And Cain was the firstborn, the one who by right was the firstborn and he had the rights and the privileges of a firstborn. But they were not quite on the same page. Abel, again, followed after God's heart, whereas Cain, not so much. But we really didn't know much about Cain until we see him murdering his brother over what most people would consider to be a pretty mild issue. But what follows that story, which a lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with, is what I find the most interesting. Because rather than killing Cain, which would have been the right and proper thing to do, he murdered his brother. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. He deserved death. But instead of giving him death, basically he was the first living human to depart from the presence of the Lord, right? So he is banished. He even said, "What you have put upon me is more than I can bear." So even he realized, as evil as he was, he realized, if I don't have the protection of the Spirit over me, I might as well be the walking dead. So to me, what's interesting about that turn of events, leading him, banishing him from the presence of God, to me, is where I believe that the entertainment industry was born. If you follow the lineage of Cain, some interesting developments happened. They were people of industry. They built cities. They were the first to be the tent makers. Interestingly enough, before that whole encounter, people didn't live in tents. That's kind of interesting to me, strange maybe, because they didn't need them, because they had a more suitable covering. But outside the influence and the blessing of the presence of God, they go and they produce their own dwellings, tents. It's also the time in history where musical instruments were created. So it wasn't the descendants of the righteous that introduced musical instruments on the earth. It was the descendants of Cain. So it's widely believed among most people who study this that Lucifer himself, when in heaven, was one of the chief musicians. So it would make sense that he would have been the driving spirit teaching the descendants of Cain how to produce, build, and tune their instruments. They were also a people of leisure. So for the first time, man departed his role of work and producing from the ground to enjoying leisure and time off. And while God really does promote rest, they basically didn't want to do any work. So they're all about leisure. Today, we see this in the form of artistry. We tend to elevate artistry of, let's leave all the hard work to the lower beings, even if today that means robots and AI, so that the humans can engage in the higher exercise of philosophy and art. We see this today. Well, I believe that started with the descendants of Cain. So that's kind of an interesting backdrop that happened thousands of years ago. But what do we see today? What do we see today in today's form of the entertainment industry? Well, we see a lot of self-serving characters that come onto the scene, not because they want to better mankind or improve humanity as a whole. They want to elevate their own status. They want to drive fancy cars and put on fancy clothes and elevate themselves on a plane higher than you and me. So we can look at, for me, what is a true biblical truth. You might view it as, well, I don't believe a word you just said. For you, that might simply be a myth or a fable at best. And yet we see seeds of that in our culture today. To me, I find that very interesting. It's one of the hardest things for me as a voice coach, because I realize that most of the singers that come into my studio or I connect with online, they have this desire to become famous, to perform for thousands and thousands of people. And why is this a desire of so many people? Well, I believe it's because of that seed of Cain that put it into our heads and our hearts that special people get to be on a platform, they get to perform for lots and lots of people, and we all deep down want to be special. There was an interesting scene in the movie The Incredibles where the family was trying, this superhero family was trying to blend in, and they were telling their children, don't let on that you're a superhero. Just kind of blend in, act like everybody else. And one of the children said, but I am different. I am special. And the mom said, everyone's special. And the kid said something pretty profound. He said, if everyone's special, then no one is special. And that is such a powerful truth because it's absolutely true. And I would say we need to stop trying to be special, because to be special basically means that I have something that nobody else has, that I am not just unique, but absolutely unique. I am there's no one like me in the world. Now we've heard things like this. I don't know that this is a healthy perspective. Number one, because that is exactly where narcissistic thinking comes in. I'm special, therefore I deserve special treatment. I deserve special resources. I am entitled to things that others are not. So I'm not a big proponent of either myself or anybody else thinking of themselves as special. I think that's a very dangerous thing. So what if we considered abandoning the idea of being special for just being great, or just being all that we were created to be, or just filling our role? Because all of us, there's no completeness in all of us. All of us were built, all of us were created to serve a particular and specific role. We are specific, we are unique, but the moment we start thinking of ourselves as special, we get into a problem. What's interesting to me is that I could be a master craftsman, I could be a builder of homes, and people could look at my work and go, wow, that guy is amazing at what he does. But they wouldn't put me on a pedestal and go, he's famous, he deserves to eat at all the finest restaurants. No, a lot of builders just blend in like everybody else, but yet they're still amazing. They still built that skyscraper or whatever that you see, but nobody looks at them and goes, Now, here in recent years, we have tended to celebritize other things other than entertainment. But at the end of the day, what's wrong with just being great, being well sought out for your gift, without becoming a god or an icon or an idol. Do you find it strange that the show that captivated all of us for many years was called American Idol? Do you think it's a mistake that we call people who get on a platform and sing for thousands of people, we call them idols? We're literally saying exactly what it is. It's idolatry. We're worshiping people. We were never meant to worship people, and people were never meant to be idolized and worshiped. That's why it drives most people insane when it happens. So if that's kind of the problem, what do we do? If my path and my destiny was one that I am chosen, or it is my path to get on a platform and sing in front of thousands of people, how do I steward this? How do I not let it become all consuming and destroy me? Well, here's where I look to Ben Rector. I've kind of examined this guy because he's one of these amazing artists who captivates me. His music goes straight to the heart. He has a real sword in his lyrics. He's amazing. And as far as I can tell, it sounds like he's also a God-fearing person. I believe he is a Christian as well. He's not preachy with it, but it doesn't seem that he is afraid to insert spiritual matters into his works, and it doesn't seem to affect his audience. People seem to love him for it. And as I examine him, one of the things that really stands out to me, one of the differences with him, is that I can truly appreciate his art, but also look directly at him and go, he's a guy just like me. And what I really respect about him is that he doesn't put himself on a different plane than anybody else. He basically just puts himself in a category of, I just happen to be good at song and writing and producing, and that has taken me down this path. But when you watch him interact either in interviews or with people, he doesn't take himself too seriously. He doesn't elevate himself in his thinking. He's a guy just like you and me. In fact, I believe if you were to happen to pass him on the street, you could probably have a pretty normal conversation with him. And at least that's my impression. I've never met the guy. I could be wrong. But he at least carries himself in a way that he doesn't elevate himself and he doesn't exalt himself. And yet he has quite the following. I think over 128,000 followers on social media and probably more than that on YouTube. So he clearly has a wide audience. And so my question is, how does he do it? How does he keep all that in check and balance? Because we can learn a lot from him. One of the things that I just want to encourage you, that if you desire to be on a platform in front of people and you see the stars and the lights and all of those things, examine your heart and find out, why do I want that? Do I want that because somehow I don't feel like I'm enough without it? Do I want it because there can be a good and useful purpose? Does it feed me and my own sense of worth? Or is it improving the value and the worth of others? My number one desire for everybody that I work with is let your gift that was given to you freely be a gift to others, which means it's really, at the end of the day, it's really not for you. It can benefit you and it can take you amazing places, but your gift ultimately wasn't for you. You didn't earn it. You didn't do anything to deserve it. It was a gift. And like any gift, it's meant to be shared and re-gifted to others. I feel like that's what Ben Rector does. His music is a gift to me. You know, when I listened to that album, for me, it took me about an hour to get through the music from beginning to end. And I enjoyed it thoroughly. For him, it was a year and a half of his life of hard work, day in, day out in the studio, day in, day out writing. He put a lot of work into it. For me, my job was easy. I just hit play, downloaded the album, and I'm off to the races. So he was able to, with his hard work, pass off a gift to me that I was able to enjoy. And that's really the way our gifts should work. We do the hard work so that the recipient can just enjoy. If we live our lives that way, whether we're singers or public speakers or whatever it is that we do, if we have that perspective and we have that orientation, we're going to go much farther. What I do at My Voice Mentor is work with people and actually help them get on a professional path with their craft. There's lots of things to do that are really exciting. And once I just started discovering them, I'm like, man, why did I ever want to be famous? This is so much better path. It's so much more enjoyable. and I get to live a normal life. Trust me, you don't want to live those lives. You don't want to live a life of exaltation and glory. I mean, look at what it does. Look at how it has affected those who have been immersed into it. What I want to encourage you is there is a path for you. There is an open door for you. Go through it. But hold on to your dreams of stardom. Hold on to them loosely, because there may be a better way. I want to just encourage you in that. And if you want to improve your voice, I encourage you to check out myvoicementor.com/bootcamp. Take my 5-day vocal bootcamp. You're going to get a lot of great tips on how to improve your voice right now. And if you become part of our My Voice Mentor program, you will actually get some more in-depth training on how to turn a skill, a talent, a gift into a career path. There's so many things that you can do with a good voice, and now is the best time to get started. So I look forward to connecting with you. In the meantime, I look forward to seeing you in next week's episode. But do me a favor, if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification if you want to be informed of future videos. For now, think about what we've talked about today and keep investing in your voice.